Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Welcome, everybody, to the final live episode of Is It Better Than Paddington 2 before Streamathon on April 27th. I am your host, as always, Ben Seltzer, Culta Media's leading expert on Godzilla, as well as other such kaiju. Today, we are going to be talking about something very near and dear to my heart. Oh, just a moment, please. Wow, these markers are built different. We're going to leave him here. So, tonight I'm going to be discussing something very near and dear to my heart. The legendary Godzilla Monsterverse, which has been continuing since 2014 and just recently had its most latest film release with Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. There are 5 movies in the legendary Monsterverse: Godzilla 2014, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. Tonight will be possibly the largest episode of Is It Better Than Paddington 2 ever, and that is why I'm by myself. Because nobody, except for me, could take on what I'm about to do. So, we begin in 2014. I'm kidding. We actually begin in 1954. The United States military is attempting, after World War II, to test new nuclear weapons, or so they say. In reality, they are developing new and stronger nuclear weapons to kill some giant monster off the coast of California, roaming around in the Pacific. But, you know, who cares about any of that? In 1999, Walter White, played by Bryan Cranston, not actually named Walter White, but the human characters don't matter in these films, his wife dies in a horrible nuclear meltdown in Japan. Excavations elsewhere being conducted by a man by the name of Dr. Serizawa uncover some kind of giant skeleton, ancient and bigger than anything ever seen before. The second one is an egg in the nuclear dead zone created by that nuclear meltdown from before. So, we fast forward to 2014. Walter White, after being caught trying to break into this nuclear dead zone to find some sort of data that he had left behind in his career, gets out of jail and contacts his son, generic army dude, in order to help him break in again, essentially. So, turns out, in this nuclear dead zone, there is actually no radiation at all. It's been clean, and quite possibly has been clean for several years. But in that dead zone, in the middle of a giant security wall with barbed wire, because I'm sure that will help, there is a gigantic monster egg, like the one that I mentioned before. While they are there, Walter White is desperately trying to explain to the scientists there, which includes Dr. Serizawa, that the sort of tremors that are being caused by this egg are not, in fact, earthquakes, but electromagnetic pulses. And the readings from this site confirm this, confirming that Walter White is, in fact, not crazy at all, totally. But, unfortunately, it is too late to warn them, and the giant monster egg hatches. And, spoiler alert, I apologize, but the giant wall and barbed wire are not enough to stop a gigantic monster that feeds off radiation. What is this gigantic monster, you asked? Not Godzilla. It is something that is defined as a massive unidentified terrestrial organism, or MUTO for short. So, after this, Serizawa and Army Dude joined together in a task force to stop the 2 MUTOs, because there's actually a second one. The one that just hatched, I believe, is the winged one, which is identified as male, and the other one is a much larger, not flight-capable one, which is determined to be female. So, one of them, the female, attacks a submarine underwater and takes it to Hawaii in order to eat the nuclear material inside. But this monster is pursued by Godzilla, who causes a tsunami just by leaving the water in Hawaii. Remember this, because it will never happen again. So, the two of them fight, and it immediately cuts away from the action. I should have specified before, I'm not going to spend much time talking about Godzilla 2014, because Godzilla literally has less than 4 minutes of screen time in the entire, I believe, 2-hour plus film, which is bullshit, in my opinion. So, turns out, this Muto that was on the coast, that was in Hawaii, my bad, it was actually the male Muto. It was sending out calls. This is what Godzilla was responding to and how he knew where to go. But these calls were actually to the other female Muto, because he wants to fuck. So, unfortunately for him, the other Muto was busy destroying Las Vegas at this time, as is her right. The army decides that they are going to use nukes to lure these creatures out into the ocean and destroy them, because that's a great idea. Anyways, they decide for some reason to transport the nukes by train. Not sure where this idea came from, but the train is predictably derailed by the female Muto, I believe, who then eats many of the nuclear torpedoes within it. And as such, gets a massive power boost, because who knew that trying to lure the monsters with the radiation that strengthens them would end up strengthening the monsters with the radiation. Crazy, I know. Anyways, they decide to airlift the remaining nuclear warheads over to San Francisco. But Godzilla shows up and destroys the Golden Gate Bridge for no apparent reason. He definitely could have just swam under it, but that doesn't matter. And the Mutos at this time are going hard and making babies. Godzilla then fights both of them, gets horribly beaten the crap out of, but manages to come back with his blue atomic breath, the coolest part of the movie. I won't lie, like this, as far as this movie goes, out of the 5 of them, it's my least favorite, but it has the coolest moment with Godzilla's atomic breath, where he disintegrates one of them and then sneaks up on the other, forces its jaw open, and breathes the atomic breath down its throat until its body disintegrates and is left with only a head. And then he takes a big nap and he leaves, somehow not leaving a giant tsunami in his wake. So, that was Godzilla 2014. Did it sound uninteresting? It kind of is, but it's a pretty cool movie. I just really wanted to go over the parts with the giant monsters, which unfortunately there aren't many. Thankfully, our next movie has quite a lot of giant monsters. That is 2017's Kong Skull Island. Now, Kong Skull Island doesn't really focus on Godzilla at all. He appears very briefly at the end. It mostly focuses on that loser King Kong or whatever his name is. But it is still an important piece of setup for the Monsterverse to follow. So remember earlier when I said that our timeline started in 1954? I lied to you. We actually start in 1944, right at the end of World War II. These two soldiers, whose names are American pilot Hank Marlowe and Japanese pilot Gunpei Akari, crash land on an island after getting into a dogfight together. They start trying to kill each other, but are interrupted by some kind of giant monkey of sorts. Meanwhile, we're gonna flash forward a bit to 1973. I should have left room for it, and I didn't. That was my fault. Thankfully, everything from this point forward goes after 2014. We'll get to that. So, in 1973, it is the midst of the Vietnam War, and John Goodman is trying to get the government to fund an expedition out to a mysterious place in the ocean called Skull Island, which is so named because it is an island conveniently in the shape of a skull of sorts. So, he recruits a few people, U.S. Army Command Lieutenant Samuel L. Jackson, former British Special Air Service Captain Loki, and anti-war photographer Captain Marvel. So, They arrive at Skull Island and start dropping seismic charge explosions in order to map the island and prove John Goodman's hollow Earth theory. This is played for a joke, but it later becomes canon. But then they end up waking up the big monkey, Kong, who predictably is not very happy about his island being bombed. Seriously. So he attacks many of the helicopters, downing pretty much all of them and killing several people in the process. This has made Lieutenant Samuel L. Jackson swear revenge on King Kong. They want to acquire some weapons from one of their choppers that drop nearby in order to kill the big monkey. Pretty good idea if you ask me. And Loki and Captain Marvel start forming, a bit of a friendship together. So, excuse me, I'm consulting my notes here. Along their expeditions, they meet a tribe of natives called the Iwi. The Iwi are going to be very important later, so please remember them. With them is Jack Marlowe, played by John C. Reilly, Will Ferrell's sidekick, and he has apparently survived on the island thanks to the help of these people and the giant monkey from earlier. How convenient, right? So it turns out that after Kong stopped their fight, Jack Marlowe and Gunpei ended up becoming friends, but Gunpei was sadly killed later by a skull crawler, which is how to describe a skull crawler. It's better if I just draw it for you here. Give me a moment. So we got like a real toothy maw here, big hollow eyes. It's kind of like a snake in its kind of snake-like. It's more of like an eel of sorts. The face is like just exposed bone also. Not necessarily exposed bone, but like a chitinous shell of bone. And then it's got two, big arms here that it walks around on. So, this is a skull crawler. Pretty good if I do say so myself. So apparently, the skull crawlers are responsible for killing Kong's entire species. Crazy. Because, Kong himself seems to handle these skull crawlers pretty well. Because the reason why he was so enraged by the bombs was not because of the bombs, because why would that make him mad? It was because the bombs woke up some of these guys, the skull crawlers. And Kong is a young ape. He's still got some growing to do. But he seems to handle at least the younger skull crawlers pretty well by himself. Which begs the question, if a essentially teenage Kong can handle these guys pretty efficiently by himself, how did they wipe out an entire species of adults? Do you want that to be explained? Too bad, it never will. So it turns out that there is a whole hive of skull crawlers hiding underneath the island, but they are hiding because they are scared of Kong. So if Kong ever were to die, the quote-unquote big one would be released. Now that doesn't seem like too big of a problem. Kong, it's not like there's anybody out there like a disgruntled military lieutenant who has it out for Kong and wants him dead, right? So anyways, John Goodman tells Samuel L. Jackson to not kill the monkey, and Samuel L. Jackson decides that he's going to kill the monkey. So him and his group of men go and find a bunch of weapons, and they set a trap for Kong using a buttload of explosives and flammable charges and oil and gas. So they set this up, and the plan is, how to put this lightly, they want to knock Kong over into the puddle and explode him. Now, this almost works because there is other things going on. There's some skull crawlers walking about doing their thing. But what ultimately ends up happening is Kong gets pretty badly burned in the fire, but not really that hurt. And he is about to wake up. No, he does wake up because the skull crawlers are now out and about because they think Kong is dead. But then Kong wakes up because he feels his island being threatened, and Lieutenant Samuel L. Jackson is about to press the trigger to blow him up, to which Kong responds, pretend my hand is Samuel L. Jackson here. So Samuel L. Jackson dies, quite unfortunate. I believe John Goodman also dies in this film. He gets eaten by a skull crawler, if I remember correctly. Also, one of the skull crawlers spits out John C. Reilly's friend's skull with the dog tags on it. No, actually it spits out a different person's skull with dog tags on it. Either way, it's very convenient for when it happens. So the big one is out, and it is wreaking havoc. The funniest character in the movie, whose name I can't remember, does this self-sacrifice move where he plans to get eaten by the skull crawler while holding live grenades and blow it up from the inside. But then the skull crawler just whaps him with his tail and he blows up on the side of a mountain. And it's played very seriously, but it's really, really funny. Like, they try to make it this big emotional moment, but it ends up being the funniest joke the film ever tells. But that's besides the point. Kong and the Big One, as they called it, it basically, imagine this guy, but a lot bigger. So Kong and the Big One do battle, and it ends up trying to eat Captain Marvel, who Kong has taken a liking to, because we can't have a Kong movie without him forming a bond with a blonde woman for some reason. So it tries to eat her. Kong reaches into the Skullcrawler's mouth and pulls her out, along with all of the Skullcrawler's internal organs, and then it dies. So they manage to return home. Jack Harlow, John C. Reilly, meets with his wife again, and all is well and good, except Loki and Captain Marvel have been taken into custody by Monarch because they know too much now, and they show them a bunch of cave paintings that show various depictions of what they believe to be other titanic creatures. At this point, Godzilla's existence has not been revealed to the world, but we see a cave painting of this guy. So we also see a few other cave paintings. I'm going to draw them for you here. Let me pull up my list real quick. Adam, my dear boy, is chat saying anything interesting?
10 out of 10 art.
Oh, thank you. I try very hard. So, among the cave art, we have, of course, Godzilla. We also have this lady. I don't know if you can see that quite well. She's a giant moth. You'll never guess what her name is. We also see another winged creature of sorts. He's got more of a pterodactyl-like appearance. He's got real funny wings. That's supposed to be two separate feet here. I'll draw a leg line. There we go. That is sort of a horned pterodactyl of some kind with fire. And then we also see this guy who I'm almost done. Got to give him all of his eyes. We have this three-headed guy down here, and one of those paintings shows not only Godzilla doing battle with this fella here, but also doing battle with Kong. Foreshadowing. Remember this later. Okay. Now we're past the boring movies. It's getting a bit warm in here. I'm gonna just take my tie off. The neck on this jacket is a lot tighter than on this shirt is a lot tighter than I remember it being. That's better. So, we move forward in time a bit to 2019. Both the released year of Godzilla King of the Monsters, our next film, and also the year it takes place in. How convenient. Anyways, after Godzilla killed the Mutos, showed up and killed the Mutos in 2014, saving many people, also killing several hundred and or thousand with, that time he caused a tsunami. You remember whenever he caused a tsunami just by getting out of the water, but for some reason every time he's gotten out of the water since he hasn't caused one, or every time he's gotten into the water he hasn't caused one? You remember that? It kind of implies that he just has the power to decide to cause a tsunami, but just often chooses not to use it. Whatever, though. Who cares about that? We're talking about this guy again. I just realized, you guys don't know what Mutos look like. I'm gonna draw one up in the corner here. They got big silly beak mouths, and big flat heads, and then they walk kind of like cavemen or like gorillas. They got like these two arms that are just actually their legs, and then they got much tinier legs in the back there, and then they got like weird like RGB, not RGB, but like they got like weird LED red eyes. They're strange little creatures, but I like them. I think it's a fun, creative design. Actually, you can't really see that from here. Let me pull it up a little bit closer. There we go. We got all the guys here. Anyways. Ooh. Also, shout out to Sloan, Quick Draw, Jessamine McCraw for lending me this whiteboard, and Rachel Burke for lending me the easel. This stream wouldn't be possible without you. Anyways, we moved to 2019. It's 2019. Godzilla's been gone for 5 years since he killed these guys over here. And we don't really know what he's up to or what he's doing, but there is some people who are keeping tabs on him. More on them later. So in 2014, there was this family in San Francisco during Godzilla's battle with the Mutos, whose son was unfortunately killed. These characters will be named, these two parents will be named My Son is Dead and Monster Lady. More on them later. Because who cares about them? Because Mothra, the moth from earlier, did you ever guess that her name would be Mothra? How crazy. Mothra is hatching right now. There's a giant Mothra egg that is at a Monarch outpost that is hatching. But not just yet. We are in the kitchen in the morning with Monster Lady and 11 from Stranger Things. 11 from Stranger Things has been in secret communication with her dad. My son is dead. So their place, the place that they live, is on the Monarch outpost. Fine. That's believable. Scientific outposts provide housing to their researchers all the time. That's totally reasonable. And it's not too far-fetched to say that they would extend that same grace to the researcher's child, especially if they have full custody of the child. Because science jobs don't typically pay like billions of dollars, so it's not like Monster Lady can afford a like round-the-clock babysitter for her kid, 11 from Stranger Things. So I can totally buy that they both live in this research station together. What I can't buy is what happens afterwards. When Mothra is hatching, Monster Lady brings 11 with her to the lab. And, maybe it could happen. Maybe they would let a child into this lab where they are currently studying a dangerous giant monster. But, it's kind of far-fetched. Anyway, Mothra hatches. She's not this yet. She looks more like this. She got two big ol' eyes and a little mouth. And she looks more like a big, sausage thing when she hatches. She's not quite Mothra yet. She is still a little caterpillar that has yet to blossom into a beautiful giant moth. So, turns out the reason why Monster Lady is studying the Titans is because she has developed a special super high-tech laptop that can communicate with the monsters in some way. So she goes into the sort of containment center for Mothra's egg, where Mothra is hatched, to activate this device called the Orca, in order to send out these sound waves to make sure that Mothra doesn't do anything, stupid, like kill a bunch of people. But Monster Lady presses an incorrect button, and Mothra starts killing a bunch of people. She starts spitting webs out of her big old mouth and hurting people and doing bad things. So Monster Lady's trying to figure out what's wrong. 11 from Stranger Things is worried, so she snatches a security tag and goes in by herself. This is why I can't believe that they would let a child on a research station like this, but whatever. And they figure out the Orca together and calm Mothra down, and things are all good. Except evil bad guy man shows up with a group of mercenaries. Evil bad guy man, he's like yay tall, mostly bald, got a white beard. He's an older gentleman. His motivations are never revealed, ever. It's not clear why he had to do that. Because what he does is they kill a bunch of the other researchers and then kidnap Monster Lady and 11. So it's not clear why they had to do this because I'll talk more about that later. But, you know, his motivations, I guess, are money focused, but they never make that like explicitly clear in the movie why he's doing this. But, you know, we'll get to that later. So, allow me to consult my notes for a moment. Adam, do we have anything fun in chat?
No, all the kids are paying attention to class.
Oh, okay, good. No talking during class unless you want to. And also, does anybody have any questions so far? Because I would at this point. But you know, we haven't gotten to the meat of it yet. We're kind of like only scratching the surface right now. Any questions from the class? Maddie, Adam, any questions?
That all makes sense so far.
All right, cool. So, ooh. So after this happens, they leave Mothra behind for some reason, and then so she leaves and goes to take a nap in a waterfall and basically form a chrysalis. How she has gone from hatching as an egg of a caterpillar to forming into a chrysalis in literally like 48 hours is beyond me. But evil bad guy man shows up, kidnaps 11 from Stranger Things and her mom Monster Lady, and they need to go to Antarctica for some reason. More on that in a second. Back at Monarch HQ, they've been monitoring Godzilla. They know where he is. They got his bioacoustics, so they can track everything. His movements, his vitals, what he's doing, what he had for breakfast this morning, his current mood, his Facebook status, everything. How do they have this information? Who knows? It's kind of explained later. It's implied that they used Godzilla's bioacoustics to make that Monster Lady used his bioacoustics to make the orca in the first place, but it's also not really explained how having Godzilla's bioacoustics means that they could track his every living, breathing move. So here we are introduced to some other colorful characters through the lens of My Son is Dead. Basically, he was also he formerly married to Monster Lady. My Son is Dead used to also work on the orca, and that's why they need to talk to him, because she's been kidnapped with the orca. So we meet Dr. Serizawa again. He's pretty cool. We meet old Ray William Johnson. We meet not Neil Brennan being the comedian. We meet the lady from Shape of Water, that one guy from Hamilton, the Colonel, and a bunch of other generic humans whose names I didn't bother to remember, because who cares about the humans when we have these guys? Take fucking notes, monster movie makers. I don't give a fuck about the stupid humans. I want to see these guys. Thankfully, in the movies that we will get to, they've kind of realized that, but they still have too many humans. But we'll get to that. So, they basically tell My Son is Dead that his ex-wife and daughter have been kidnapped with the orca, which, as far as he knew, was destroyed because his ex-wife lied to him. Fair enough. So they have to figure out what is going on and where they are, because if some evil bad guy man has the orca, that could be a little dangerous, because there's not just one Titan, there's not just two, there's not just all of these guys. There are, I believe they say, 19 and counting, and they have research facilities for all of these guys. So, did anybody ask any questions in chat, by the way? Interesting. How many people we got watching? I don't have the stream open for once. 4? Sick. 4 people in class. I like you guys. You're good students. So, they, through tracking Godzilla's movements and bioacoustics, figure out that he's probably heading toward Antarctica because he hears some shit going on there. He hears some motherfuckers talking shit, and Godzilla does not stand for people talking shit about him. So, meanwhile, at Antarctica, evil bad guy man and his mercenaries, along with Monster Lady and 11 from Stranger Things, break into this facility and start setting charges on a giant ice block. Encased within is a monster that they are only calling, for now, Monster Zero, whatever that means. So their plan, apparently, is to wake Monster Zero up. Why they would want to do that, I'm not familiar. Many of the Titans... Oh, excuse me. I need a drink. Nondescript green beverage. Okay, so most of the Titans have been found are in deep hibernation. The only exceptions are, of course, Godzilla, now Mothra, and I believe Kong. But every other Titan that has been located has been found deep in some kind of hibernation. And many of these Titans were found to be sort of venerated by the ancient cultures in the surrounding area that they occupy, which is neat. I really like this bit of world building. I like this kind of idea that these gigantic monsters beyond comprehension would be seen as gods by ancient cultures. That's a very cool detail. Anyways, so they managed to free Monster Zero using these charges, and this guy. You remember this guy from earlier? The funny three-headed dragon. Here, let me bring him closer. This guy, my artist rendition. That guy wakes up. So first he's coming out of the ground. We see one head, then two head, then three. If you are a fan of Godzilla, you will recognize this motherfucker as King Ghidorah, that punk ass bitch. Anyways, King Ghidorah starts causing problems. He has this cool lightning breath power. He also has gigantic wings. But then Godzilla pulls up. He gets his ass beat a little bit. He hasn't fought Ghidorah in a while. This is not the first time they're fighting, by the way. And he kind of gets slapped around a bit, but he's pulling through. My man does not let anybody give him shit. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, Ghidorah ends up fleeing the battlefield. Also during this fight, Mr. My Son is Dead. He gets launched back by a shockwave and hits a shipping container like on his back really, really hard, like minimum permanent nerve damage and possibly paralysis, but should be probably dead. But that's neither here nor there. There's a lot of moments in these films where the human characters probably should have died but didn't. Anyway, Ghidorah leaves and becomes a gigantic storm cloud, which is mistakenly believed to be a forming tropical storm. They then get on a Zoom call with Monster Lady, who reveals that the reason why she is freeing all these motherfuckers is because the Titan's radiation has been shown to cause new life to grow wherever they cause destruction. So basically, the plan is humans are the real disease. Crazy. So humans have caused overpopulation, pollution, war, etc., etc. And so what she wants to do is free all the Titans so that they can basically restore the natural order to the world and prevent everything from dying at the cost of several million lives. Great plan. So, evil bad guy man is also in on it with her, which that's the implication. That he also wants this, that he's not just in it for the money, but he's almost certainly seems like he would just be in it for the money. This is what I was talking about earlier. Why did he have to kidnap them if they were in on it? If they were making this plan together. You know what I mean? That doesn't make much sense. I guess Eleven from Stranger Things is a problem because she doesn't necessarily agree with this philosophy of sacrificing millions of people just so the world won't die. But, get a babysitter, I guess. It's dumb. You know what I mean? These movies don't have really great logic when it comes to the human characters. These guys, they're doing great so far. They're getting a lot more screen time. They have very simple motivations. This guy wants to kill this guy. This guy wants to kill this guy, and kind of all these other guys too. This guy's dead. We don't need him anymore. This guy's also dead. Take him off the board. Let's draw King Kong. Let's get a monkey in here. This is kind of a monkey face. Give him a little ear. Kong. It's uncanny. Here, it doesn't seem like you can quite see. Let me get a little closer there for you. There's King Kong. Look at him. Rodan shitting on his head. So, They are still intent on this plan of releasing Titans, so they decide to free this guy, Rodan. Remember that guy? I drew him like 10 minutes ago. He's great. He's the silliest Titan, which makes him the best one. Adam, you would probably really like Rodan. He's a funny guy.
Look right now.
Yeah, he's just a fiery pterodactyl motherfucker. So Rodan, also known as the Fire Demon by the local cultures, he wakes up. They basically had a gigantic cork on the top of a volcano that Rodan was living in, and Monster Lady and Evil Bad Guy Man pop the cork off. So Rodan wakes up and starts causing some problems. He destroys a small city in Mexico, and then he starts flying towards that big tropical storm from earlier, which is actually this guy, Ghidorah, who then beats Rodan's ass into submission. Mr. My Son is Dead saves some civilians by committing millions, possibly trillions of dollars or billions in collateral damage by basically they have this like gigantic space plane or something. These movies are so optimistic about the future of technology. We're not even getting to the stupid shit yet, but they have this fucking like Star Wars looking ship. Monarch does. First of all, Monarch isn't even like government funded. They're not government. That is explicitly stated in multiple movies in the future that they are not affiliated with the United States government or any government for that matter, even though they totally are, because there's no way they could have this level of funding otherwise. Anyways, they have a hangar door on this giant plane that is not opening, and they have a helicopter full of civilians nearby that need to escape. So Mr. My Son is Dead drops a fucking helicopter on the hangar door and blows it open, which I guess works. I hope that he doesn't have to pay for that damage. But the U.S. military contacts the Monarch plane and basically tells them that they are going, once Godzilla shows up, because he will, inevitably, they are going to unleash a new weapon called an oxygen destroyer. You'll never guess what it does. Anyways, basically the idea is that it is something that will exterminate all life in a 2-mile radius. So they basically radio Monarch to tell them, hey, get out of there unless you want to die. Fair enough. So the Monarch people escape. Godzilla shows up and gets Ghidorah on his own turf, the sea. Ghidorah is taking an ass beating and probably would have died in this moment if the U.S. military didn't fuck everything up and release the oxygen destroyer. Now, so I'm going to reveal something to you here. It's not revealed until later in the movie, but I already knew this at the time that I watched it. So at this point, the oxygen destroyer goes off, all is quiet, but then Ghidorah bursts out of the sea and flies away to the volcano where he sits and takes his throne, I guess. I don't know why he's sitting on a volcano, that's gotta hurt. Meanwhile, Monarch is reading Godzilla's vitals, and his heartbeat is slowing and slowing until he flatlines. So the reason why this happens, Godzilla is of Earth. He's been here forever. It's implied at times that there are multiple members of his species. It's implied later that he is the only member of his species, like the only member ever of his species. Certainly the only member now. But the reason why this works is that Godzilla, he's been around for a while. He needs oxygen to live, and so the oxygen destroyer does a shitload of damage to him. It doesn't do any damage to Ghidorah because Ghidorah's from space. So this guy, the Muto, being from space, I could see it. They look weird and alien. Even the skull crawlers being from space, I could see it. They're strange. Mothra, yeah, sure, why not? Ghidorah, it's just incredible. You know what I mean? Like, this wasn't even something that, this wasn't something that was even created by this movie. This was created when Ghidorah was created by Toho. He's always been from space. He's just a 3-headed lightning hydra from space for some fucking reason. And you know what? It rules. Also, the name Ghidorah, it means the one who is many. Anyways, they find out that Ghidorah is from space, and that the reason why he's able to cause these such massive problems is because he's literally an invasive species, or as Dr. Serizawa puts it in his oh so poetic terms, a false king. Cool and good. just a moment. So, Ghidorah goes and takes his throne on the volcano, and he basically screams at all of the Titans on Earth to wake the fuck up and come bow to him. This wakes up several Titans throughout the globe, including Scylla, which is a gigantic sort of spider monster, Methuselah, which is like a turtle with a mountain on its back, kind of like Torterra, the Pokemon, Behemoth, which I believe in canon is the explanation for Bigfoot myths. He's just like this gigantic mammoth without a trunk, essentially. A random third Muto, who knew that there were more of those guys, and also every other Titan on Earth. So 11 from Stranger Things calls her mom a monster because humans are the real disease. Meanwhile, Mothra, who is currently in the egg, Mothra in her cocoon is hatching. The egg is hatching, and out of the egg, oh god, I got marker all over my fingertips. Out of the egg comes the giant moth, who for some reason just glows with the heavenly light of the sun. So Mothra, for those who don't know, for those not in the know, Mothra is a species that has sort of ancient symbiotic bonds with Godzilla. So that's a great thing, because Godzilla's gonna need the fucking help. Because what they have found out, Mr. My Son is dead. He is shown through the heavenly light of Mothra. Not sure really how they come to this conclusion. Hold on, I'm sorry. I apologize. I just glanced at my notes again. I'm getting ahead of myself. I forgot to mention something integral to the plot. So the sort of like wolf pack theory of like an alpha, etc. That is used extensively in these movies because even though it doesn't apply to wolves or anything in real life, it does apply to these motherfuckers. So Godzilla is an alpha titan. He's an alpha male. Ghidorah is also an alpha male. And obviously you can't have two alphas in the same room at once, so they gotta kill each other. Anyways, so there is some, issues with all of these titans waking up across the world at once, destroying many things. So Monster Lady decides that she wants to broadcast the orca from the giant speakers in Fenway Park in Boston, and get Boston destroyed instead, because we can live with that loss. So for some reason, this conversation is happening in a room that has like a direct speaker line to 11 from Stranger Things' room. And so 11 decides, because Mr. Evil Bad Guy Man, he doesn't want to go through with that plan. He just wants to let things happen how they're happening. But 11 decides that she's going to do it instead. And so she goes and grabs the orca and leaves for Fenway Park, because I guess nobody was guarding this secret bunker at all. And so the child is just able to roam freely, steal the most important piece of technology in the entire bunker, and just walk out the door. Okay. So, Mr. Dead Sun Man sees God, Mothra, who somehow is able to lead them to Godzilla, who is alive after all. They somehow they were really far from where he was. He has a den underwater. They were really far from him, but then they suddenly just appeared like a short trip away from his place. And old Ray William Johnson, who I mentioned earlier, he said, I knew it. It's the Hollow Earth. There's tunnels, man. And it's played for a joke, but he is right that it is canon. We'll get to that. So they find Godzilla in his underground temple man cave, which is built by a culture that is older than every known human culture in existence. All known society, Egyptians, Mesopotamians. Fuck those guys. These guys were first. So basically, they decide that they're going to juice Godzilla up. They're going to blow up a nuclear warhead near him so that he can absorb the radiation and essentially heal all his wounds and get a little stronger. But there is a problem. The submarine breaks down. How? It runs into a rock or something. I don't know. You would think that these gigantic pieces of military equipment that are meant to survive for several months underwater with barely any contact to the surface would be a bit sturdier than that, but I guess not. So, meanwhile, they can't fire the torpedo. And so Dr. Serizawa decides that he is going to go in there, set a timer on the torpedo charge, set it down, and sacrifice himself, essentially. Basically, there is no way that a person can get in and out of there without dying, because as I believe old Ray William Johnson puts it, if the heat doesn't fry you, the radiation will. So Dr. Serizawa gets in this little escape pod submarine, goes over to Godzilla, sets the timer on the nuclear charge, takes off the helmet of his hazmat suit, and this is I'm being serious, being real for a second here. This is a very touching moment because Dr. Serizawa has spent his life studying Godzilla, watching his every move, trying to document him, trying to figure out everything he can about him, and then he is the one to save Godzilla's life. And he goes up, he pats Godzilla, who is laying there dying, near death. He goes up, pats Godzilla on the nose, and says in Japanese, "Goodbye, old friend." And Dr. Serizawa is a character that is ripped from the original Godzilla movie in 1954, and so just having this sort of tribute to the history of Godzilla and the history of both of these characters is really touching. Anyway, Serizawa dies. So Godzilla gets up, heavily juiced, better than ever. Somehow, in his process of getting out of bed, it launches the submarine to the surface with no difficulty. Why they could do that but not just go into his cave is unclear. So, meanwhile, while this is happening, 11 steals the laptop, and she pulls a Five Nights at Freddy's by crawling through the vents, and starts broadcasting the Orca at Fenway, stopping all the Titan attacks around the globe, and luring them all to destroy Boston. We can take this L. Back in the ocean, Godzilla is supercharged, and he's ready to kick this motherfucker's ass. So unfortunately, though, Ghidorah gets to Fenway first. Excuse me. Mr. Dead Son decides that he wants to join Godzilla in the fight against Ghidorah. How they're gonna fucking help against Titans that are immune to all forms of human weaponry, I do not understand, but I guess they're gonna do something. Anyways, Ghidorah pulls up at Fenway. He was faster. So 11 unplugs the Orca, but it keeps broadcasting just from the laptop, which gives Ghidorah a direct line into her location. He's about to kill her, but then Godzilla rolls up. He blasts the dumb fuck dragon out of there. And it turns out Ghidorah can actually be affected by missiles because he's a pussy. Anyways, the fellas start going at it, Godzilla versus Ghidorah. Godzilla's radiation levels keep rising. He's getting hotter and hotter. He's about to go thermonuclear. Mr. My Son is Dead goes to the ground to find 11 so that he doesn't become My Son and Daughter Are Dead. Ghidorah has got Godzilla on the ropes, but then who shows up? Her! Mothra! She appears and webs two of Ghidorah's heads to a building so that Godzilla can tackle him through that fucking building. But unfortunately, Ghidorah has simps of his own. Rodan. So Rodan pulls up and starts fighting Mothra. It's Mothra versus Rodan. It's Godzilla versus Ghidorah. This movie's fucking awesome. Like this whole sequence, it makes the less than 5 minutes of screen time Godzilla had in 2014 and the very human-centric story that is not good worth it just to see all of these motherfuckers kicking each other's asses. It is great. So, meanwhile, 11 from Stranger Things has returned to her childhood home, and Godzilla and Ghidorah have decided to move their fight there. Godzilla's getting Ghidorah on the ropes, but Ghidorah takes a bite out of a power plant. This is not an exaggeration. He literally takes a bite out of a power plant, and he gets juiced up, and he launches lightning fucking everywhere. The army gets the fuck out of there, while Mothra is getting attacked by Rodan, but then she is able to stab him in the shoulder and kill him. But she is very badly injured. No, Rodan's not dead. My bad. I made a mistake there. Rodan is not dead. He is very much alive. He just got stabbed in the shoulder. My queen does not kill people. She is just like Batman for real. Anyways. Rodan drops out of the fight. 11 from Stranger Things seems like she's dead, but they hit us with the classic dead person takes deep breath as they wake up fake out. Ghidorah hauls Godzilla up to the upper atmosphere and just drops him. Great move on Ghidorah's part, honestly. Which causes him to become critically injured, but he is still heating up. He is still about to go thermonuclear. So Mothra shows up to defend him, and she defends him from Ghidorah's lightning blast, but then disintegrates into pure healing magic. How this works isn't explained. There is some things, like these movies try to have like pseudoscience in them, which is all well and good, but there are moments where it's just straight up magic. Just call it magic. Anyway, Mothra dies. She's dead. Very sad, very unfortunate. But with her last breath, she gets Godzilla even more juiced up. And Godzilla decides that red is the new blue, and he turns into Burning Godzilla. Reference to Toho. Heck yeah. Monster Lady dies, even though she totally could have lived. It's unclear why she chooses to sacrifice herself. She doesn't really need to. She just, I guess, uses the orca to lure Ghidorah away from Godzilla so that Ghidorah doesn't kill him while he's down. But she dies saying, "Long live the king," because she's got to have a one-liner before she goes. Godzilla bursts into flames, sends out these giant nuclear pulses, disintegrating Ghidorah's wings first. So that's, the wings are off the board there. And then he does it again and disintegrates two of the heads. Not sure why it disintegrated two and not the other, but, that's fine. And then he stomps on Ghidorah's chest, crushing his rib cage. And then with Ghidorah's head, his last head in his mouth, he blasts off his atomic breath and disintegrates Ghidorah's last head. Hell yeah. And that's basically everything interesting that happens. But wait, intrigue. Back in the second fight that Godzilla and Ghidorah had in the ocean, Godzilla managed to rip off one of Ghidorah's heads. He was able to grow that head back, don't worry. But Mr. Evil Bad Guy Man has acquired that extra head that was ripped off. And he is seen to have possession of it by the end of the movie. What's he gonna do with it? Evil. I don't know. We never see that character again. In fact, with the exception of My Son is Dead and 11 from Stranger Things, we will never see any of the characters in this movie ever again. Do you see what I'm saying now about the human characters at this point? If they can just be if the cast can just rotate out so easily, what is the point of having the human characters in the first place? The only characters that were shared between Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla King of the Monsters is Dr. Serizawa. Literally every other character in 2014 does not make an appearance in 2019. So why fucking have them at this point if they're not going to tell more than one story with them? Anyways, I digress. Excuse me, let me get a drink. Any questions from the class so far? Anybody have anything interesting in chat that they've said?
On YouTube, Mr. Spalding said that the bear will win in this Godzilla versus Paddington fight.
We're not even to the cool part yet, Mr. Spalding.
Which movie are we on?
Well, we just passed movie 3, Godzilla King of the Monsters. Thank you, Maddie, for your question. And so now we are going to jump ahead a bit, 5 years. So I'm running out of space here. It is now 2024 in universe, this year. This movie released in 2019, but in universe it is 2024. And whenever I said earlier that they have really high expectations about the development of technology in these films, holy fuck, it goes off the fucking charts in this movie. So I won't need notes for this movie because I know it by heart because I've watched it about 1 million times. Spoiler alert, of the Monsterverse movies, this is my favorite and what I also believe to be the best of them. Kong Skull Island is probably better, but not King of the Monsters versus Kong is overall the better movie. Anyways, it's getting It's getting a bit warm in here. So, let me just... Anyways. So, we get to 2024 in the timeline with Godzilla versus Kong. I know who I'm rooting for personally. So, basically, a lot of characters are introduced in this movie. We get Mom, who is another monarch scientist. She's basically like if Monster Lady from King of the Monsters was a good person and wanted to like protect and preserve these species instead of let them wreak havoc on the world. And she has an adoptive daughter named Gia, who is also known as the Kong Whisperer, because she is the last living member of the Iwi tribe of Skull Island. Let me just... Feels weird having it like only partly unbuttoned. So, Gia is the last living member of the Iwi tribe from Skull Island, which is the tribe that Kong used to protect. So Kong, feeling a duty to the Iwi tribe and to just people in general, he has formed a bond with Gia and has dedicated himself to protecting her by any means necessary. Unfortunately, for Kong, Skull Island is currently being consumed by a massive storm of some kind and is about to like sink into the fucking ocean. So Monarch has formed a giant dome around his place to keep him safe. But Kong, I talk a lot of shit on this monkey. He's pretty smart. Oh, also, in between movies, Rodan died. Basically, like the movie opens with like a bracket showing like the accomplishments of these two monsters over the course of time. But the issue is Kong is that, I will say this, as much as I don't like this punk ass monkey, he is at a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to Godzilla, because Godzilla's had 2 movies at this point. Kong has only had 1, and Kong has also never left Skull Island. So all he's killed are these... This is not comfortable. All he's killed is the big fucking skull crawler guy. So, despite the fact that they are now similar in size, Kong started off at about 100 feet in Skull Island, and he has tripled in size since then. I did some calculations on this a while ago. If we compare the size of Kong, to the size of the relatively largest gorilla species in real life, the silverback gorilla, if we sort of draw like a comparison, Kong's full height compared to a silverback gorilla's full height, Kong in Kong Skull Island would have been the size of a baby in that movie, which I think is really funny. Anyways, so the movie opens with this bracket showing all their fights. Godzilla's killed a bunch of the Titans I mentioned earlier off screen. Fuck me, I guess. Methuselah seemed really cool. Giant mountain turtle guy, but I don't get to have nice things. So Godzilla has killed a bunch of these guys off screen. Kong still only has this 1 W under his belt, but now they're gonna have to fight each other, baby, because that's how crossovers work. So basically, Skull Island's being destroyed. Kong isn't happy. Godzilla is going around and destroying cities. This is the first time that he is appearing to have attacked humanity. And one of the places that he is targeting is facilities called Apex Cybernetics. Why he's targeting these places, we're not sure. But we see them through the lens of an IT guy that works there, or he's a very low position in the company. Anyway, he's literally me. His name's Bernie, but he's literally me. He's a podcaster. He is obsessed with these guys. He's me, for real. So, anyway, Godzilla's attacking these human places. First time he's ever done that. So the military is looking into options to potentially neutralize Godzilla. Not really good for me. That's my special interest. Don't take that away from me, please. So, who listens to Bernie's podcast, though? 11 from Stranger Things, from the last movie. See, I told you she would come back. Her story's awful in this movie, but, it's fine. She tracks down Bernie with her friend, the kid from Deadpool 2, to basically figure out what he knows, because he broke into a secret facility in Apex Cybernetics and saw what looked like a gigantic metal orb with a big red light that was emitting a pulse very similar to what we have heard from the Orca. Foreshadowing. Hair's coming down. So, they find Bernie. He showers with bleach. For some reason, that is a very specific detail that they want you to know. And basically, he learns that 11 from Stranger Things is the daughter of Monster Lady from before. And so they form a plan to break into the the destroyed Apex Cybernetics facility in Pensacola, Florida, that Godzilla just recently destroyed. They plan to break into that facility and see what they can find out. Meanwhile, Dr. Nathan Lind, aka Skarsgård 1 of 3, he is visited by obviously evil CEO and a character whose nickname I will not mention yet, as it is a bit of a spoiler, and I wanna wait to get there. So they meet up. Drop something there. So the evil CEO meets up with this other guy, with Skarsgård 1 of 3. So basically, he had a hollow Earth theory that was laughed at, and people said it was stupid. But his brother died in the hollow Earth. This is all canon. I can't properly express how ridiculous these movies get. Like, you have to watch them to really get it. Anyways, so Mr. Skarsgård is revealed to by the obviously evil billionaire that they have developed a hovercraft-like vehicle that should be able to withstand the gravity inversion of the hollow Earth and not crash and kill everybody. How they have a hovercraft in 2024 is beyond me, but maybe it's just because I don't live in this timeline. So, but the issue is they kind of need help. They don't really know how to get through the hollow Earth portal efficiently and safely. They would need the help of somebody who does, such as, a big monkey. So, Skarsgård 1 of 3 is friends with that mom from earlier that I told you about, and she is sort of like in charge of everything when it comes to King Kong. And so she's just like, no, absolutely not. Like, as soon as we take Kong off this island, Godzilla's gonna come for him, because Kong is also an alpha male, in addition to Godzilla, another alpha male. So at first she refuses, but he's just like, come on, we can go to the hollow Earth, we can make a huge scientific discovery, come on, it'll be fun, it'll be cool, he'll be safe, it's fine. And so she agrees, and they start getting Kong over to a hollow Earth entrance that they know about in Antarctica. How they have this solid definitive proof that the hollow Earth exists, like they literally have an entrance to the hollow Earth, how they know it exists and hollow Earth isn't just knowledge at this point, it's deemed ridiculous and stupid, is beyond me. But that's not the point. I'm gonna erase some stuff while I keep talking here. Anyways, so what happens next? Right, they put Kong on an aircraft carrier because the safest way to transport Kong in a way that won't get him detected by the monster that lives in the water? It's by sea. Of course. So Kong is chained up to this aircraft carrier. He is being hit with heavy, heavy sedatives, so he's not on his game right now, really, which is unfortunate because... also we find out that Kong knows sign language. This is fun and cool, but barely really, not used too much after this movie. So Godzilla shows up, and the first person to hear about it is Gia, because she has some kind of, sense for that kind of thing. More on that later, but basically, excuse me. So basically, Godzilla shows up. He starts destroying some of these aircraft carriers in this fleet because he wants to get to Kong, but Kong is chained up and can't defend himself. So Godzilla hits him a few times, flips that boat over, the boat that all of the human characters, all the important ones anyway, are on, gets flipped over, and Godzilla starts drowning Kong, essentially. So thankfully, Skarsgård, one of three, is able to swim over in the flooded ship over to the control panel and pull the lever to release Kong so that Kong can defend himself. And it goes very well, actually. Kong jumps over to another aircraft carrier. Godzilla gets up there with him, and they start punching each other. Kong gets in a good right hook, but Godzilla comes in from downtown and hits him in the face and is about to kill him with his atomic breath, but gets hit again. Basically, this goes on for some time. The fight in total is like 20 minutes long, and it is all during the daytime, and the CGI is fucking phenomenal. Like, the reason why these films have never been nominated for Best Visual Effects over something like a more recent film like Godzilla -1 is because, you know, they aren't like they're silly movies, and for some reason the Oscars don't think that silly movies deserve Oscars. But the visual effects in Godzilla vs. Kong are fucking incredible. Anyways, that's besides the point. Godzilla is dragging Kong down to the bottom of the ocean to kill him. So they set off a depth charge, which stuns Godzilla long enough for Kong to escape. And Godzilla is just like, he's probably dead, and leaves. So then they airlift Kong the rest of the way to Antarctica. Why they didn't do that in the first place is beyond me. But you know, they get him to go through into the Hollow Earth, which is real, and they start following him around and stuff. Meanwhile, over at Apex Cybernetics, literally me, the kid from Deadpool 2, and 11 from Stranger Things, all find this like sub-level underground railway system transporting skullcrawler eggs. Okay. And they end up on a train, essentially, to Hong Kong. What's in Hong Kong? We don't know. We don't know quite yet. But it is whatever is making Godzilla go crazy, which Godzilla is still going crazy. Meanwhile, down in the Hollow Earth, you know, they're following Kong around. He fights a couple of these like winged snake creatures, which are called warbats, which is a cool name. He disposes of them with ease. There's a bunch of cool wildlife and stuff. There's a ground and then also a sky, like a ground on the ground and a ground in the sky. And they find this old structure, this ancient structure, which seems to have been built by Kong's species. There's a throne. There's a neat little like piece of art on the floor that looks like a curled up Godzilla. And more importantly, there is a giant axe which is made from a bone and what appears to be one of Godzilla's own dorsal spines. Metal as fuck. So Kong takes a seat at the throne. I forgot to mention the reason why the obviously evil billionaire asked Mr. Skarsgård to go to the Hollow Earth is because they believed that there was an energy source in the Hollow Earth that could help them power a little project of theirs. What is that project? Why, well, as literally me, 11, and the kid from Deadpool would figure out, it is a gigantic fucking robot Godzilla, the same size as Godzilla, with a huge fucking laser in his mouth that is somehow able to move with very, very good range of movement. And how are they controlling this massive monstrosity, you ask? Well, of course, the pilot's not in the mecha. That would be dangerous. No, you see, they have two of Ghidorah's skulls, and one of them is in the robot, and the other one's in the control room, and they're using the psychic link between those two skulls, not the brains, the skulls, so that he can pilot the fucking robot. What? And not to mention the fact that by the end of King of the Monsters, there was only one Ghidorah head. So unless cloning is real in this universe, they would have had no way of getting one of the other skulls, because Godzilla obliterated all three of Ghidorah's existing heads, and the third head, and the secret fourth head, was found by evil bad guy man. So I'm assuming that he gave it to these guys at Apex, but that still doesn't explain where the second skull came from. Anyways, I'm reading too much into this silly movie, as I often do. So basically, they have this mecha, but they don't have the proper way to power it just yet. So they believe that power source is in Hollow Earth, and lo and behold, it is. They were right the whole time. Crazy. and it is in that gigantic sort of like cave painting thing of a glowing blue Godzilla, which allows Kong to draw radiation from the core into his axe to power it up. It's really video gamey. It's kind of cool, actually. So, one of the people on this expedition is the daughter of the evil billionaire from before. She takes a bit of a sample, and whenever the others try to stop her, so Gia is on this mission as well, and whenever Gia, her adoptive mother, and Skarsgård try to stop this woman from taking this sample, they decide to point a gun at the only person on Earth that the giant monkey who is 20 feet away cares about. So obviously that doesn't go super well for them. They get the sample though, they upload it. I don't know why they can just upload it instead of, needing to bring the sample to the surface. Like I said, the technology is insane. So they upload the sample, but all of the humans except for the ones that we're supposed to care about die. Meanwhile, Godzilla has shown up in Hong Kong because he's pissed. And he decides to use his atomic breath to drill a fucking hole to the center of the Earth, where he then screams at Kong to come and get him. So Kong takes his axe and starts jumping down to Hong Kong. Skarsgård, Gia, and the other Kong lady, they all get into one of the hovercrafts and fly down to follow him. And now we're in Hong Kong, baby. It's the final showdown, round 2. So round 2 begins. They're fighting, they're hitting each other, they're both getting some good hits in, but ultimately what happens is Kong jumps off of a building, blocks Godzilla's atomic breath with his axe, and hits him over the head with it. He gets a good hit in, whatever. Round 2 goes to Kong, I guess. So, Kong is trying to sort of sneak around and fight Godzilla because Godzilla's not done yet, but Kong is about to be, because what ends up happening is Godzilla gets Kong pinned down to the ground, stomps on his chest a few times, yells at him in the face to back the fuck off. Kong is just like, no, you back the fuck off, and so Godzilla's like, all right, man, back the fuck off, and Kong is just like, nah, man, nah, that's ain't how this works. But Godzilla's like, well, you're already dead, and he leaves. Meanwhile, Kong is dying, and the sun is rising on Hong Kong. And with the uploaded sample, the mecha has powered up way too much and is now sentient on its own. The implication is that Ghidorah is possessing the mecha, which is fucking ludicrous, but I kind of love it. Anyway, the mecha kills the evil billionaire, just for fun, I guess, and then blasts his way out of the mountain to go and kill Godzilla. They do battle, but unfortunately for Godzilla, this is a machine that was designed to kill him. So it is beating his fucking ass. And unfortunately, Godzilla just can't take it. But Kong is over on the ground dead. But you know what? They said a line earlier in the movie. Those hovercrafts, they have enough power in them to light up Las Vegas for a week. Las Vegas is destroyed in this universe at the time, but I'm assuming they rebuilt it. So basically, they somehow rig it up to be a defibrillator and jumpstart Kong's heart again. He gets up. He's got a dislocated shoulder. He's pissed. Godzilla's over there getting his ass beat. Gia tells Kong, hey man, Godzilla's not your enemy right now. That big metal guy, though, he is. So Kong does honestly a really cool move, and to basically put his shoulder back into place, he slams it against a building and rolls his shoulder, and he's ready to kick ass. So he runs over, narrowly saves Godzilla from Mechagodzilla pulling his jaw open and lasering him to death, narrowly saves Godzilla's life, and the two of them start tag teaming this motherfucker. But he is still too strong for both of them. So Kong grabs the axe, and he starts hitting them. They're going at it, but Godzilla gets knocked down, and Kong, he's about to die. But it's a good thing that Eleven, the kid from Deadpool, and literally me are all in the control room for Mechagodzilla, where they pour whiskey on the computer, and I guess that fucks everything up somehow. So Mechagodzilla is no longer at full power. Godzilla breathes his atomic breath on Kong's axe and powers it up, and Kong just completely fucking dismembers Mechagodzilla. One arm, the other arm, the tail, a leg, and then rips off Mechagodzilla's fucking head. And then both of them lay down to take a bit of a nap. So, a few minutes later, Godzilla, he's ready to go again. He's up, he's ready to kick Kong's ass again. And Kong is just like, okay, man, I'm done. You win. And then Godzilla's just like, yeah, fucking right, man. And he flees back into the sea, never to be seen again. Psych, I lied. 3 years later, it is 2027. Kong is now living in Hollow Earth full-time, where Monarch has been able to set up multiple outposts to monitor him and other Hollow Earth wildlife. He's searching for his family because, nobody told him that his whole family is dead. And meanwhile, Godzilla is doing his thing, protecting the Earth, saving the planet. Hell yeah. So Godzilla in Rome does battle with that Titan I mentioned earlier, Scylla, who, it kind of looks like this. And she's got like a weird, tentacly mouth and a bunch of eyes. Anyway, Scylla's attacking Rome. Godzilla makes short work of her and then lays down in the Colosseum to take a nap. It's adorable. I love it. Meanwhile, Kong is down in Hollow Earth, still looking for his family. But then, there's something wrong. He's got a toothache, man. And so he, for the first time since Godzilla vs. Kong, Kong returns to the surface because, his tooth hurt real bad. And so they call in the best fucking character. His name's Trapper. He's basically like if Ace Ventura was actually cool. And he rips out the old tooth, puts in a new metal tooth for good old Kong. And Kong goes back to the Hollow Earth to keep looking for his family. Thankfully, Godzilla didn't notice. Meanwhile, in France, Godzilla has just destroyed a nuclear facility and is eating all the radiation because he's powering up for something. We're not sure what yet. The French military tries to attack him like the idiots they are, and they get hit with a gigantic nuclear pulse and all die. So, meanwhile, back in Hollow Earth, one of the outposts has been destroyed. Gia, literally me, Trapper, Gia's mom, and this other guy whose name I'm not going to mention because he just gets eaten in a little bit anyways. They all go down to Hollow Earth to locate the source of a signal. So this signal looks like this. It's two spikes with a big spike. It's 3 spikes total, and the one in the middle is different. So Gia has been seeing this spike in her dreams and drawing it. There is something that is connecting her to Hollow Earth. There is something that is coming up from down there, and Godzilla has been responding to it. So what we find out from Bernie, literally me, he looked into it, and readings similar to this have been found corresponding with nearly every major Titan event. And somehow he got the idea that it was a distress call of some kind. So there's somebody down in Hollow Earth that is calling for help. So all of the gang gets together. They go down to Hollow Earth to go on this little mission. Find out that one of the Monarch outposts has been destroyed by what looks to be a giant ape of some kind. Now, as far as we know, all the apes are dead. So who could this guy be? Well, we're going to find out. Because a giant fissure has opened in the earth where Kong normally goes to hunt. So he takes his axe and he goes down to see what's down there and just find out things. He ends up in a place called the Subterranean Realm, where he meets a little guy. Let's draw this little guy here. My drawing skills aren't the best, but he meets this little guy. That little guy right there. He meets a little monkey. He's never seen a little monkey before. This is Suko. I'm telling you his name now because the movie won't, but the toys will, and that's how I found out. So Suko is a little baby orange monkey of some kind, and Kong is like reaching out to him, trying to tell him like, "Hey man, hey, I'm cool. We can be buds, man. I haven't seen another monkey before." And Suko bites him because it turns out Suko was just a diversion, and 3 other apes come out and jump Kong. So Kong, being built different, kicks all of their asses. At some point, he uses Suko as a blunt force object to hit multiple gorillas with. It's really fucking funny. And, you know, he ends up just fighting them all off and basically taking Suko and being like, "Hey, you're my bud now. Lead me to where those guys went." And Suko's just like, "I don't wanna." And Kong tells him, "You're fucking gonna." And Suko's like, "Okay." So they set off on a little quest. At the same time, our human characters are all on a similar quest. They are trying to find the source of this distress signal here. And what they end up finding is an ancient Iwi temple deep within Hollow Earth that seems to worship Mothra. That's crazy. Too bad she's dead. So, meanwhile, on the surface, Godzilla is still juicing up, and he goes and fights this one Titan called Tiamat. I'll draw a little picture of her too for you guys. You know, she's kind of got like a starfish face, like a frill of sorts, but then, you know, she's like a little dragon lady, and then she's got like a big long snaky body. So, you know, that's a rough approximation of Tiamat down there. So Tiamat basically is just like, "Hey, get the fuck out of my house." And Godzilla's like, "No," and kills her, and then breaks into her house. Oh god, I hope I didn't just mark my shirt or anything. So Godzilla goes because basically this spot, for some reason, receives more solar radiation than anywhere else on Earth. So Godzilla's there to get fucking swole. And he goes and he takes a little nap. Back in Hollow Earth, the humans meet a tribe, a still living tribe of Iwi people that have been living in the Hollow Earth. Turns out that they can communicate telepathically, no idea what that's about. But they find these 3 quartz pyramids that look exactly like this. And Gia is basically, they are taken into a room by the queen of these people that has like a bunch of prophecies written on the wall. But basically it is mainly telling, oh, hold on. I forgot to cross out the dead characters. It is mainly telling the story of this guy, and a secret third guy. So while this is happening, we are swapping back and forth between the point of view of the humans and the point of view of Kong, who, Suko tried to trick him a few times and get him killed by some of the giant monsters in the subterranean realm. But as I said before, Kong is shrimply built different. So he, manages to make short work of everything Suko tries to throw at him, and ends up making it to this, like, long forgotten tribe of apes. And while we are learning about this tribe of apes, the humans are telling us that basically there used to be, the Titans were the protectors of the earth, and the great apes were the protectors of humankind. But one day, a great ape by the name of Scar King, he's a little devious. He's got a silly face, and he's got a big long face, and he's a skinny motherfucker. That's kind of what he looks like. I'll bring him a bit closer. Yeah, that's him right there. Rough approximation of Scar King. Scar King, Scar spelled with a K. Not sure why. So, Scar King basically in the ancient past wanted to rule over humanity. So he harnessed the power of another ancient titan called Shimo, who, kind of looks like this. She's a big lady. She's wonderful. I love her. Got a nose there, and a big ol' eye. So Shimo, roughly what she looks like there. Shimo is basically, she caused the fucking Ice Age, is her whole thing. So using the power of Shimo, Scar King essentially tried to take over the world, but this man, Godzilla, this movie implies that Godzilla has been the only member of his species for the entire time he's been alive and that he's been around since like the beginning of time. Not sure why that is, but okay. So with Shimo, Scar King tried to flee, get out of Hollow Earth and take over the surface world, but Godzilla essentially was just like, no, and sealed him and all of his followers in a sort of volcano realm. How they haven't been able to get out of this volcano realm is beyond me, because we see Zuko and Kong going to this realm, and they can get there pretty easily. Like, it's not hard. So I'm not sure what the issue was the whole time. There Kong meets with Scar King, this guy, who has a giant whip made out of a creature's spine, and at the end of it is this crystal. Kind of looks like that. That is like the first thing we've ever seen like injure Kong, like the first weapon at least we've ever seen injure Kong, which is kind of insane. Oh. Ugh. So Kong and Scar King fight a little bit. Scar King's kind of kicking his ass, but Kong. Oh, also Scar King does have all of the apes basically doing slave labor for him, and he's mistreating them horribly, which is how him and Kong get into a fight in the first place, because Kong goes to help a guy up who fell over, and then another gorilla starts yelling at him, and Kong punches him in the face, which is really funny. But then somebody goes and tells Scar King, and Scar King's like, "Hey, motherfucker!" And he's like screaming at all the apes, and he screams at Zuko, and Zuko's dad, I assume Zuko's dad, he's like, "Hey man, hey, that's just a kid." And so Scar King's like, "All right," and kicks his dad into the lava, and so Kong starts fighting him. Scar King's kind of kicking his ass at first, but then Kong gets one over on him. Scar King's very agile and limber, but Kong is bigger and stronger, and he slams Scar King into the fucking ground. So Scar King is like, well, okay, fair, and he opens up the door to let Shimo out. So this crystal is at the end of Scar King's whip, and somehow this crystal allows him to control Shimo. We do not know if it is a Hollow Earth crystal, if it's some other magical crystal, if it's like something from Shimo. Shimo's covered in like ice spikes all over her back. We don't learn that if it's one of those or not. He can just use this thing to hurt Shimo psychically and get her to do his bidding. So Shimo hits Kong with some freeze breath and nearly freezes his arm and gives him horrible frostbite. And so Kong is forced to flee. He's pursued by some apes, but him and Zuko are able to deal with it, because Zuko is just like, yeah, I am on your side now. Good for him. Character development. But Kong is badly injured, and so he and Zuko go to where the other humans are in Hollow Earth and are all like, hey, my hand hurts. I really need help. And so Trapper's just like, well, we could go get Project Powerhouse. Project Powerhouse was a program designed to make Kong even fucking stronger in case something like Mechagodzilla were to ever come up again, or in case Kong just needed to defend himself in general. So Project Powerhouse is this gigantic metal gauntlet thing, like robot, mechanical gauntlet, whatever. So Trapper goes and gets the glove for Kong. Somehow does this within the explanation of what Project Powerhouse is. So literally somehow in 4 minutes gets all the way out of where they were back to Outpost 1 and brings the giant gauntlet, called in the toys at least the Beast Glove, back. They attach it to Kong. He fucking loves it. It gives him lightning punches, which is super cool. Also a reference to the original King Kong vs. Godzilla from the 1960s. Meanwhile, Godzilla, he's done taking his nap, and he's pink now. Hell yeah. They fucking yassified my boy. So now we have a situation. The prophecy that the Iwi people have states very specifically that basically Godzilla is needed to help seal this away. But it also states that there is a chosen one, an Iwi from Skull Island, who will be able to resurrect Mothra. So, if you haven't already guessed, Gia is the Iwi from Skull Island in question. She is the chosen one to resurrect Mothra. Does it sound ridiculous? I assure you, they play it very seriously. So, let me just, I erased her earlier. Let me just redraw the lady. There she is. Let me give her a little smiley face, because she's back alive. So, Kong goes to the surface to get Godzilla to help. Gia resurrects Mothra. Kong surfaces in Egypt, and basically, we don't know exactly what they're saying, of course, but I'm assuming he says something along the lines of, "Godzilla, you punk bitch, come and get me." So Godzilla hears this, and not one to be talked shit on. Godzilla rolls up to Egypt. They fucking destroy all of the pyramids of Giza. Fucked up. And meanwhile, Kong is just like, "Whoa, man, I was just kidding. I just need your help, man. I was just kidding." But Godzilla doesn't care. He told Kong to stay away, and Kong didn't stay away. And Godzilla, my man, stands on business. So, they get into a fight for a little bit. Kong manages to temporarily subdue Godzilla and starts dragging him over to the Hollow Earth portal. But Godzilla's like, "Oh, hell no, nobody's gonna demean me like this." And so he's about to hit Kong with his new and improved atomic breath. He's got like 20 times the radiation power now. It's insane. So they're fighting still. And so then Godzilla's wife, Mothra, shows up and is just like, "Stop fucking fighting. Jesus Christ." And so Godzilla's just like, "Fine, okay, I'll help." And meanwhile, one of the apes that Kong disposed of earlier that followed him home is actually alive, and goes back to Scar King's domain to basically tell Scar King, "Yo, they got portals to the surface over there, man. Shit's crazy." And so Scar King, riding on the back of Shimo, leads his apes to the Iwi civilization in order to finally escape the Hollow Earth. So they are on their way. They are, in fact, actually just getting there. Meanwhile, the Iwi, how to put this in a way that sounds like it isn't incredible and ridiculous. Basically, the Iwi have this little cave full of liquid metal of some kind, and if they pour this red juice into the liquid metal, it makes the pyramids, because there's two sets of pyramids. There's like the main set, and then from the ceiling in that cavern, there's an other identical set. And so if they pour this red juice into the liquid metal, it'll make these two pyramids touch and turn off gravity for a second. I'm gonna let that sit in the air for a second. Anyways, so the Iwi enact this plan to turn off gravity to buy themselves some time until Godzilla, Kong, and Mothra can get back. And then Scar King shows up. The pyramids are about to touch, but Shimo blasts it with some ice so that they aren't touching. But, just in time, because Godzilla, Kong, and Kong roll back up. They are charging towards Scar King. Scar King is riding on the back of Shimo. Kong hops on the back of Godzilla, and they get this really funny shot of like Shimo and Godzilla are charging towards each other, and Scar King and Kong both jump off their respective mounts' backs and like freeze frame, literally like slow motion in the air doing the same poses. And then we get a shot of each of their faces like as they're like in the middle of their battle cry roar thing. It's really fucking funny. And then they start fighting, but then right at that moment, the pyramids touch and gravity is turned off because that's how things work. And so the fight is happening in zero gravity. Godzilla, my boy, he lives underwater. He's used to fighting in a strange space, like in a weightless sort of space like this. So they're doing fine. Meanwhile, Zuko and one of the apes, one of the like other unnamed apes, are fighting, and Zuko ends up killing the guy after gravity turns back on. Good for him. Scar King and Kong are fighting. Godzilla and Shimo are fighting. It's a big all-out fight. It's pretty cool. And then gravity turns back on, and they all start falling. So Scar King changes his trajectory so that he falls right into the Hollow Earth portal. Kong goes after him. Godzilla and Shimo also go after him. And Kong tries to like catch himself using his axe, but then loses his grip and leaves the axe behind in Hollow Earth. And they all disappear into the portal. And where do they show up? Where do they pop out on our Earth? Rio, with the big Jesus statue. So Scar King pulls up. Shimo freezes the ocean outside of Rio. Scar King is like blinded by the sun, and so he commands Shimo to start the Ice Age again so that it's cloudy. And he's about to start just killing some humans, just having his fun. But then Kong shows up and punches him in the face and knocks out his tooth. Really cool. And meanwhile, Shimo's about to go off on Kong, but then Godzilla shows up and just takes her away from the fight, essentially. So it's then this all-out fight in Rio with all of the monsters kicking each other's asses. Every now and then, Scar King tries to get Shimo to double team Kong with him, but Godzilla rolls back up and is just like, no, this one's mine. You guys have your fun. I'm taking care of business here. And then eventually, the whip, Scar King's whip, is destroyed, and the crystal falls out of it. And he needs that crystal to control Shimo. So he's trying to get to that crystal, but Kong also knows that he needs that crystal to control Shimo, and so he's trying to get to that crystal. Meanwhile, Suko in Hollow Earth grabs Kong's axe and jumps through the portal. And while Godzilla and Shimo are fighting, what happens is Kong is holding back Shimo's breath with his new fist, but he can't hold back for long. And she is giving out the ice breath for a very long period of time. And then Godzilla tackles her away. Kong goes for the crystal. Scar King goes for the crystal. He starts strangling Kong, gets him in a chokehold, but then Suko rolls up with the axe and destroys the crystal. I wish we knew what it was, but we never will. So Scar King starts getting tossed around by Kong and Godzilla. Kong throws him to Godzilla. Godzilla tail whips him back. Kong catches him. Scar King is like demanding Shimo do something about it, but then Shimo realizes that she's not under his control anymore, and so she freezes him solid, and Kong slams him into the ground, and he shatters into a million pieces. It's fucking beautiful. And then Godzilla uses his atomic breath to stop the Ice Age storm that Shimo caused earlier. Not sure how that works, but whatever. Meanwhile, at the end of this all, Kong goes back to Hollow Earth. Mothra seals away the Iwi people again safely and flies off to who knows where. And Godzilla goes back to Rome to take another nap in the Colosseum because the Colosseum reminds him of his underwater temple home. And that is the whole Monsterverse timeline. There's no new movie announced yet. It's honestly a miracle that we got another movie after Godzilla vs. Kong because it was supposed to be the last one in the Monsterverse. But, yeah. Does anybody from the class have any questions? Any at all? Adam, is chat saying anything?
Not at the moment.
Interesting. You've all been very great students today. Wow. It's amazing that this is a franchise, this series is only 5 movies, and it's been going on for 10 years straight. And consistently, these movies, I'm gonna be honest with you, the writing, not great. But just dear God, I watched every single one of these in theaters, and it was the greatest experience every single time. But that's not what the show is about. The show isn't just about giving you the play-by-play of all the movies in this timeline. It's about ranking movies and telling you all about them. So, man, it's just I've grown up with this franchise. The first movie came out, I was 12. Now I'm 22. It's something that means a lot to me, and I hope that it continues in the future, and I hope they bring in more Toho monsters. I'd love to see a live action, a 4K Ultra HD version of fucking Gigan with his weird hook claw hands, or that one with the chainsaw hands. I think that might also just be Gigan. Or another Mecha Godzilla, or Mecha Ghidorah, or fucking Destroya. I would love to see any of those done in the style of the Monsterverse. But with that, I think it's time that we rank these guys. So here on Is It Better Than Paddington 2, we have a ranking scale based on the average rating of Paddington 2 across many different websites and user reviews and critic reviews, coming out to about 4 stars. And if I had to rate the Monsterverse out of 5, my personal rating's a 5, but these movies aren't good. I really like them. They're a big monster fighting spectacle. If you like watching big monsters punch each other, watch them. You'll have a great time. Maybe not so much with 2014. There's not a lot of giant monsters punching each other in that one. But at least from Kong Skull Island in 2017 onward to the New Empire in Godzilla X Kong the New Empire now in 2024. Yeah, you'll have a wonderful time. But, you know, in terms of like every single aspect of filmmaking, really the only place that these movies in my opinion, not only meet but set the bar, honestly, is in the like visual effects department and in like the sort of like scale and spectacle of these like set pieces and like cinematic fights and whatnot. Like the fight in Godzilla vs. Kong on the aircraft carrier is entirely in daylight, and the CGI looks great and it's really fucking cool. But every other aspect, the acting, the writing, just the dialogue in general from the human characters, honestly, you know, in almost every other aspect, these movies fairly underperform. When it's anything but the monsters fighting on screen, they don't do a lot very well. So with that, I am going to have to give the Monsterverse, on an objective rating, 2 stars. But for me, 5 stars, easy, without a doubt. I love these movies with all my heart and soul. I'm planning on collecting every single Godzilla movie someday, and I already have all of these except for the new one because it's not out yet. So that puts the Monsterverse at a solid 2 out of 5 stars, which does make it worse than Paddington 2. However, if you want a movie that is just going to be dumb fun for you to enjoy, you're not going to get anything better than Godzilla. Longest running film franchise in history. Ever since 1954, he has been out there kicking ass and taking names. And Legendary has sort of taken command over the sillier movies, while Toho is over making the actual good movies, like Shin Godzilla and Godzilla -1 from last year. So, you know, there's something in Godzilla for everybody, I think. So, yeah. And that is going to end this very special live stream of Is It Better Than Paddington 2? I hope you all learned something today. I hope you enjoyed my little lecture. I hope you enjoyed me standing on my soapbox for a little bit. But that's gonna be it for now. Be sure to tune in on April 27th from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for the Cult of Media Streamathon, where I will be doing another live Is It Better Than Paddington 2. It will be the last episode of Is It Better Than Paddington 2 ever. And, you know, I think there's a movie that we've talked about a lot on this show that deserves its own spotlight. So if you want to figure out what that movie is, tune in to Streamathon on April 27th, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And just remember, go Godzilla. See you guys.